Perfect. Okay. So, hi everybody. Excited to have you guys here today. I am E. I am the co-founder of Toth AI and Idea Inc. So I have a very specific background. I happen to be an AI software founder who loves to like draw and paint. So for all of you in the audience who is struggling or wrestling with the idea of whether A, if you're replaceable, and then B, if there's truly a role for human creativity in the onslaught of like mediocre mid-journey execution, mid-journey like generations, trust me, you're not alone. Yeah, so today's conversation will be a very flexible one. If you guys have like, questions and comments, feel free to drop it in the chat. I would love to like hear from you. Yes, Honani. I love to draw too. You can check out my website ideainc.co where I manually draw. And then I would also love to connect with all of you here. You can check out my bento.me link where it will also showcase a bit of what Top does. Yeah, so I'm pretty flexible. So if you guys want to, interrupt me anytime, I would love to hear from you. Yeah, so I have a very weird journey because I actually majored in philosophy when I was in school. I don't know if all of you like amazing UI UX designers are the same. I have a lot of friends who did like fashion design, product design. Everyone, it's like sometimes you pick up a bit of like full stack after doing a bit of coding, and then like we are all like accidental makers in our own way. So for me, I actually started working on a lot of hardware before I started Tough AI, which I think is super ironic because to me, I feel like AI right now is kind of, it's almost like, remember like before DJs happened, there was like a manual like DJ scratching like vinyl records. Or for example, before we had like Cartoon Network or like Pixar, we had someone manually having the paper and just flip it. So I feel like if most of us as creators are very angry about AI and rightly so, I think it's really important to like breathe, calm down, and remember that we are all like people of agency rather than victims of OpenAI. Yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna moralize. So I would love at the end of this like short session for all of you to come to your own answers and hopefully to help you maybe like rethink what it means for you as someone who wants to create like artwork or like creative work. Because I don't know about you guys, I feel like every creator has like so many mediums. My jeweler like friend, like she likes to like cook. I personally enjoy like writing a lot, even though I think AI art is another form of art. Hot take. And among all of you here, I think like we have like similar questions, and I'm saying my point of view. But if you guys have more hot takes, just drop your comment, and we will respond. Firstly, hot take: what is creativity? Do you think you're creative, or do you think you're just like a slack monkey? So my point of view is making is not creating. The world is spending like $2 to make like AI portraits, AI concept drafts, and people still come to us to do like edits, refinements, touch-ups, exports, multi-format like exports, and then like customer service. And to me, like all these things are a massive part of creativity that I genuinely think AI alone cannot solve. So I feel like when your bosses are like, oh, try like a Gen AI product, and then haha, maybe we can lay off like a freelancer in like Estonia. My general sense is you need to have conviction in terms of what you're making, which leads me to my second point. Is AI art really art? I feel like it's actually a very exciting time where, like how like a lot of people have stopped coding because there's like GitHub Copilot. People have stopped like using like legal accounting software because AI is replacing a lot of like automated labor. I think the same counts for us creators, where like if we are just like pixel pushing for every single wireframe, does it really make us a creative? That is something that I'm sure different companies have different. Yes, Honani. I think that's a very like general comment, but we can come back to this. Yeah, my sense is I think AI is really good as a mathematical tool. So it generates a lot of good art, but it doesn't generate like great art. And let me explain, like, when you're eating like a hot bowl of noodles, when you see like a beautiful piece of artwork, I feel like 8 out of 10 times, there's always a realm of what's unexpected and surprising. And that to me as a creative is what makes art art. So if the whole world is like drowning out like ads with like features and comments, and Apple comes up with a one-liner that's like very savage, to me that's like an idea of art. And one thing that a friend mentioned yesterday is common tools cannot create uncommon results, meaning that it's easy for AI to push the baseline upwards. So, like how we used to have like physical cameras and then people took photos, and then now when we have manual, and then now everyone has an iPhone, everyone can take a photo. Doesn't mean that everyone is a photographer. I think that is where creators should double down into and think about what are the realms of good and where are the realms of great. So if we can like push the bandwidth upwards, I think that will create a lot more value to the entire industry and ecosystem. But again, like everyone's answer is as good as mine because we are still in the very early days of AI. So third question, what makes you a creative? Out of everyone here, how many of you identify with being a creative? Just like random show of hands or just do like a +1. Yeah. So I think like when it comes to design art, there are two very different concepts. Design is very objective, it's very utilitarian, it is very focused on what makes like a good chair or a good piece of paper or a good laptop or a good web product. But when it comes to art though, that's where I think the world is moving towards in terms of generative AI, where when you're making like a picture book illustration, when you're making a brand logo, it's actually something that people are excited by because they are making something that they previously had no access to it. And I think if you consider yourself a professional creative, that's definitely something that you want to focus on, where you're trying to move your skills level from what is amateur to what is eventually a professional level of execution, where most people think of as competence. So we are going to like deep dive a bit deeper into what I think are very applicable ways to think about how you can protect your art or how to protect your creativity. And essentially, it's like this diagram where you can choose to expand outwards in terms of where your skill sets lie, contract inwards in terms of what you think is a form of focus. You can choose to move upstream or upwards towards your value proposition, or you can choose to leverage on existing technologies and then build below and build downwards into the realms of that powers your day-to-day workflow. Okay, my session is actually a pretty short, so I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on examples and let me know what is effective for you and what's not. I definitely think the idea of expanding out is very crucial in the age of AI, only because AI is moving from very like all-purpose generations into niche-specific outcomes. So for example, everyone's using ChatGPT to do like general summaries and layouts, and most startups have responded by creating very niche tools. So for like legal transcription or for UX research, or for example, in terms of like sales and accounting like templates. So I feel like most creatives who have done really well in the onslaught of generative AI have focused a lot on integrating external media. So for example, if they were previously like focused on like sound as a musician, they started integrating like generative AI to create MVs, or they started like working with like AI tools to create like copywriting, or they started to use AI to as a brainstorming tool to help them collaborate with more people. The second way to expand out is definitely to move towards like physical domains. So for example, for generative music and generative image, they are very focused on creating like drafts, mockups, concepts. And what is the current gap in the market right now is to expand towards, say, like an actually useful prototype for a chair or an actually buildable building for like architecture. And if we bring this like further and beyond, I think this also means in terms of like when AI is very focused on like web development, or they're very focused on like front end or like templates. We have to think deeper in terms of like what makes the specific illustrations responsive or customizable, or most importantly, high resolution. So the word that a lot of us use in tech is the idea of like it being production ready. Uh, one of like, for example, Cathay Pacific's like chief marketing officer was saying a lot of them are actually quite disappointed by AI. I think a lot of people see like the potential of AI, but everyone's still struggling with like the nitty gritty, like 80 to like 100%. So if I was like a creative working for say like Google or like Meta, or if I'm working as a freelance illustrator or a graphic designer, I definitely think like it's very important to think beyond your day-to-day production skill set to move towards like something broader where you can anchor yourself towards. So I feel like the idea of anchoring is quite important because we do have crafts we love. Maybe like you start working on like video and you're like, actually, I only like editing. Or for example, if you like UI UX, but actually you figure out later on that you prefer UX, I think that's definitely where like working with platforms are very important, because platforms can be like Behance or Fiverr, or where they basically like sell your skills. But I definitely feel like what's a lot more powerful is to actively track the AI companies that are ongoing, because there will always be a final layer reviewing and editing process where you would eventually be hired as a freelancer or a contractor. And then that's where I think existing skill sets must be reimagined and restructured into something that not only is palpable for the day-to-day workflow, but more importantly, what is very, for lack of a better word, like commercially like accessible. So the other concept that I'm thinking a lot about is the idea of contracting inwards. Because ultimately AI can do something, but it cannot do every single thing. So for example, everyone knows an AI chatbot, and we all still hate using a lot of AI chatbots. What people like OpenAI and Perplexity have done really, really well is to introduce a chat interface that makes it feel like you are talking to a person when it's actually a computer. And I think this is exactly where, as creators, we need to like think deeper into what makes us human. And what makes us human are things that are very hard to define by like technology very broadly. And that involves like a very manual craft, right? For example, are you a very good editor? Are you a very good curator? Are you a very good storyteller? Are you a very compelling or personal person that makes the person commissioning you at the other end of the spectrum to want to reach out to you and learn more about your brand? Because I think, again, we spoke about the continuum between like design and art. And I think this is exactly where the range is iffy, because if you feel that you want to be the, say, the best UX designer for a food consumer app, then you will be very then you'll be very subject to the winds of like preference, where some customers are like, oh, I love her style, it's very like, fun and colorful and orange. Or you might end up with like someone in US or Canada saying that, oh, I really love this like logo and font, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I feel like what makes it tricky is to basically figure out, on one hand, you have a body of work and you want to find patterns within that body of the work. On the other hand, you really need to be extremely thoughtful about your positioning, where you need to know what are your superpowers. Are your superpowers like customer service? People love, love, love working with you. Do you actually hate working with people and you want to use AI or other things to represent you so you can focus on like the day-to-day craft? Do you want to work with AI as an internal tool or outwards as a productivity tool? So I feel like my friends who have done, especially when they run like labor-intensive marketing agencies, animation studios, the ones that I think have done very well are the ones who have integrated AI into their day-to-day like workflow, but they still charge a lot of their clients like the same amount of money. So from a supply and demand curve, maybe a person paying like $10,000 for a graphic design poster will still pay $10,000 if you are the person generating it. Or you can just decide that your brand calling will be zero AI, fully human. And that's definitely like a compelling way still to continually do what you love. Thirdly, this is the part that I feel very strongly about. I'm not sure about everyone here, because if there's like a marketing like demand and supply food chain, the food chain on the top, people would think you're like a creative director at Apple or Google, right? You earn like $300,000 a year. And then what's like all below in the food chain would be someone who's making, say, like, photo edits, video edits, uh, mock-ups or wireframes, or you're literally just like coding out like a wireframe that someone else did in like London, for example. And to me, this is actually a non-AI problem. It is a non-AI problem because you have to decide and choose for yourself where is your sweet spot. The interesting thing is people who are at the very top, they actually had like 10 to 20 years worth of like mastery to reach that point. But it's also arguable that, for example, right now, in order to be good at finance, 20 years ago, you have to master the calculator. And right now, like you can use like ChatGPT. You don't even need to use like Excel spreadsheet skills to do what you do. So I definitely think if you identify strongly with being a creator, it is integral to really think in terms of what is like the larger, broader picture in terms of what you're making. So I will use myself as an example. I was a manual scribe. I worked with Fortune 500 clients like Google and Meta and Huawei. They were flying me around in like to like US and like China and like Singapore. But I started working on AI because I've always thought about what it takes to create something that is considered scalable. And scalable means what are your systems? So what makes a food truck different from, say, McDonald's, even though they're both selling fries? What makes Google Pixel phone very, very different from, say, the Apple iOS system? And this is the idea of systems where AI is a very good hand, it's a very good toolkit to have. But if you cannot articulate for yourself what is a broader structure or framework to create a system that becomes your productivity tool, then that is something that even without AI, another person that is a lot cheaper than you in India or Myanmar will overtake you for. And then for some of you, if you guys like make visual or music outputs, I would say like the idea of protecting your data is quite important. And that's also something I'll briefly cover later on. But ultimately, what most people have agreed on is it is not that AI will kill you. It is you not learning about AI that will kill you. And the example that we would use is in the 19th century, they call it the Luddite movement, where previously they had, like cotton workers, they had like flour mills. We had like textile mills where people were manually feeding in the flour into something and then they were manually like grinding it into powder. And right now you can buy cake that's made in like a factory, right? So I definitely think if you are a creative, being able to think, A, what are your systems? And then B, what are your principles? It would be integral to eventually build what AI means to you. I purposely chose the word what AI means to you because right now we're in a bloodbath where everyone's trying to make AI products. There are all-purpose products like OpenAI and Midjourney. They are very small products that you have not heard of because they are what we call like business to business, B2B enterprise software tools. So there are a wave of startups who have started creating what they call like style and brand compliant enterprise software tools in AI, where they generate AI. It's kind of like AI Canva and AI web design. And if you as a creator sees this as an infringement on your ability to create, then I think like we are all like in our own like problems. Yeah. Then the third one would be to build below, which is legal and business. I would talk about this for the next 20, 25 minutes because I think this is probably where most most people have to do a lot more research. And then if it's a bit technical, bear with me or just like do a quick Google. Yeah. So I did a roundtable last week, and then a lot of it was very centered on what generative AI meant to all of us. So when I use my title, Protecting Creativity in the Age of AI, what I actually meant was like, how do we stay human and stay creative even when we're surrounded by generative AI? So there are a lot of things that are broken right now in generative AI. And for example, my friends and I, we take on average like 20 to 40 minutes to generate a really good piece of like images. And then what happens is when you export the image out of the AI product, you have to eventually move to say like, a traditional like Adobe like Creative Cloud, or you have to go back to Figma and make edits. And then only after that, you can push towards like something a bit later. And what that means is when we're going through all these like different fragmented approaches, yes, Aditya, we'll come back to you. I think that is where most AI products are struggling right now. And this is probably the meat of everyone's top of mind concern. How can we protect copyright for artworks using Gen AI? The short answer is there is no solution, and let me say why. Warner Music sued two generative music companies. One was Udio, the other one I think is called Boomy. Katy Perry, I think like the Clash, a lot of musicians were like signing petitions against generative AI. Hollywood went through a 9-month strike where everyone did not write a single script and people were dying and were looking like for like freelance gigs working at Starbucks because everyone was against the onslaught of AI. And even Getty Images, they were suing like Midjourney and Stability for $9 billion. And still, right, Stability is moving forward, Midjourney is going forward. So I'm an illustrator. I know the editorial illustration scene quite well. And I think like the general sentiment is anger, bitterness, disappointment, sadness. There are a lot of Reddit threads about how people want to quit AI. And I'm only talking about this not because I agree or disagree, but because we are all struggling with the idea of what copyright and what copyright protection means to us. So if you look at the bottom right corner here, rationally, there are a bunch of group actors writing a lot of policy structures. Also a hot take, actually like companies like Amazon, Bing, Google, Canva, Adobe, they care a lot about creative copyright. And they care so much that even when they're integrating like AI products, they're a bit slower than the rest of the world because they're trying to create a way to pay creators for the data sets that are being generated. And if you guys like do a bit of research, there is like University of Chicago's like couple of tools. One is called Glaze. So Glaze is a data ghosting tool. What it means is if AI is scraping the internet, so like AI is a big brain, right? And if you have your website from 2020 and ChatGPT, OpenAI script up to 2022, so all your artworks are scripted into it. So if someone evokes your name in like DALL-E 3, they will have access to your style. That's the part that pisses off a lot of people. My narrow point of view is try out Glaze, which protects your images for all the works that you're making September 2024 onwards. Try out Nightshade, which basically is a data poisoning tool. Data poisoning just means that you will screw up like the prompting and then like the feedback loop for AI generations. There is also a app called Kara. If you're previously on like DeviantArt or etc., it is an app where a lot of illustration agencies have went to basically upload information because they believe in using like protecting your data against like AI. But that's a very big conversation because is there a point of protecting your art if no one's going to access your art, right? Like everyone's very mad at Instagram algorithms because it keeps like, rewarding for randomest things. So creators who had like I don't know, like 2,000 likes just 2 years ago. Now they're struggling to hit like 800 unless they have like video content. And I think that's also like the fact of being a creator. Sometimes we are very beholden to like the policies. For example, I have friends who use Twitter for their AI startups. Then Elon Musk buys it overnight with a bit of Russian money. And then overnight, they have to pay like 10K a month just to access like, to Twitter's like, APIs. And I think that's actually why I feel very strongly about all creators having a baseline knowledge of business and tech. Not the best, but you have to. Because back to Aditya's question, I think this is why like authorship is very important. So in copyright, there are 3 types of copyrights. The right to own your art, which is a default given in the world for global like, IP regulations. The right to distribute your work, which is what you sign off when your companies hire you. So say if a startup hires you for your wireframes, the wireframes belong to them because you're a vendor. And then you can decide as the creator if you're going to give them, say, your working files where they can make infinite edits. Then the third one is the right to commercialization, which means, which is what most photographers and fashion designers go for. So for example, or even like musicians, right? So Taylor Swift, she owns the global copyright to her music. And then she will leave Apple Music and Spotify because she's like, hey, I don't want to give you 30% of my IP. But on the flip side, she has to pay her her lyricists. She has to pay her music production studios, and she has to pay her music labels. So I think this is not a direct answer to what it means to be a copyright, because for most visual creators, it's very straightforward, right? We put a watermark, we put like, the C circle, and we're like, okay, that's our copyright, goodbye. But I think that's where we bring back to the older questions, like what are the platforms you are leveraging upon? Because when you're on Instagram, what I think a lot of creators do really well is they use their super fans to target and apply pressure towards like big companies. I think it's unfortunate that a lot of visual creators, even like I'll say arguably like UI UX like designers, we are not unionized, we are not organized. We are currently like united against our enemies. The enemy of the enemy is my friend. And unlike the Hollywood unions where they have like script writers and they have like video directors, we are a little bit too little too late. And then we are only taking now as a stance to fight for what is known as UBI, which is Universal Basic Income, or what is known as like living wages, like bare minimum living wages. But I feel like that's also a bit tricky because obviously for Starbucks and McDonald's, if they are say like in Zimbabwe or China, they are not beholden to like the $12 or $20 an hour that people in like America have to adhere by. And I think that's the challenge of enforcing legal copyrights and IP laws. It's a bit slow, it's a bit fragmented. What are we going to do to make it actionable? So I would say for me, even in Thoth, that's something I think about in a day-to-day capacity, which brings us to the top right corner. How do we transfer value? So I think like people can share a pie when there is a pie. When there's no pie, there's nothing. And I can say this, we can use NFTs as an example, non-fungible tokens. So 3 years ago, crypto was very big because they had NFT projects like crypto, Bored Apes Yacht tokens, and they had a lot of like Ethereum and Bitcoin and blockchain based artworks that were sold to like ridiculous amounts, like $50,000, $300,000 for like an avatar on X, right? And I think this is why, as a creator, it's really important thing about objective value. And I say objective because I think as an artist, we are always very precious about artworks. Like, we're painting a waterfall and we're, oh my God, this is like the best thing ever. Everyone should be paying me like 20K for this. But the way the world works or capitalism works is what is like objective value. And it's very tied to the idea of utility. So for example, if you're buying fried chicken, if the packaging is beautiful, you're like, oh my God, I love it. You put it on Instagram. But if there's no fried chicken, you want to kill the person who's selling fried chicken. And I think this is where, as a creative, we really have to think about what makes our work valuable to AI companies. what makes our work valuable to our clients, and what makes our work valuable to the agencies that represent us. So when I started building Toth as an AI product, people think that, oh, she's just like a pretty like messaging Canva, expensive Canva. But no, our value is in information design. Our value in information design means that the pain point is the world is going through a lot of content. No one's going to read through at this point, for example, for ADP list. You're not going to sit in for more than, say, like 5 sessions for 5 hours, or at best, like 20 sessions. So the value that you're creating to the world needs to be like very objective, and it needs to be very anchored around like the box you're trying to break into, which is why like one thing that Toth is trying to figure out is, can we eventually create a data purchase and data rental system? And this is where I think all of you, if you guys are building web product, are things that you guys should like strongly advocate for. Because for example, we all have our own like accounts, right? We all have our private accounts to do like Adobe Creative Clouds. We all have a system to upload our own raw files, our own drafts. We have our own like internal like software for unique ways of making something. But right now, like there is no equivalent for generative AI. We cannot see beyond what they call the black box. Companies like Meta and Midjourney have zero like incentive to show us how the AI works, because honestly, half the time even they don't know what's going on. My friends at like OpenAI and like Google, Gemini, they're all like, oh my god, it's such a mess. Everyone's working on R&D, everything's moving forward. And I feel like our anger at this point is actually quite misplaced, because I would say a lot of AI companies are also struggling with making money and making profit. So like I said, right, if there is no pie, no one's going to share the pie. But it's also good because it means like we all have energy to build our own product, which is why I spoke previously, how do we build below and how do we build our own tools. So I think at Toth, we're probably I think like Kara is also doing a great job for this reason. We're all trying to build the tools we want, not the product, the tools that's given to us. So when it comes to the idea of, really, you think so? I feel like we're quite far. Not far, you're correct. I think we are like 3 to 8 years in, but it's so important for all of us to be active participants in this conversation as a result. So for all of us here, we can, do research on petitions. We can look into finding hacks, and those hacks are uploading low resolution images. I would actually argue for reducing the number of work to be shared online. Basically, create better case studies and post less artwork. I know it sounds very counterintuitive, but that's what I did for my own like analog illustration company. Because honestly, guys, the idea of theft is rampant. If your art is good, people are going to steal it no matter what. AI companies are just late in the game. So even when I was building like Idea Inc., we had like companies from China just copy pasting our entire website. I saw my competitors stealing artwork from best companies in like London and like Germany. And even when you're doing like fashion or furniture or food, right, everyone's copying from someone. And what becomes problematic but also exciting, it means that you need to be like the moving agent where you're always continuously innovating and pushing. Just that I think right now the current challenges are both like metaphysical, where I'm like, okay, will AI replace me? And it's also like very banal and logistical, where it's more of like, what are the available tools and what are the tools that I can borrow? So if you guys are all posting on Instagram, you have to like jump through like 3 hoops. You can check out my bento link. Let me send it to you guys in the hot bit, where you can basically request Meta and everyone to take down your images. If you are on Behance or etc., I would say it's like kind of trickier, because no, they don't have a very articulate legal structure to address how your AI like policies are being used. I think like one thing that a lot of people are very focused on in terms of like AI safety is the idea of like your identity theft, right? So Kanye West, J-Lo, they all have like Elon Musk, they all have like AI avatars of them speaking and singing, and then they're also like really frustrated. And for us, little baby independent creators, I would say like we have to move towards an idea of co-authorship, where we have to be model agnostic. So model agnostic means that instead of using ChatGPT, which we're all reliant on, instead of using Midjourney, we're all reliant on, try out other products that are like Stable Diffusion, Stability AI, Krea AI. There's this like morass of tools that's available online. Try it out so that it's kind of like, instead of being loyal to just say like paper or your iPad, you can try out both. Does it make sense? I think that versatility is very powerful. The second thing is co-authorship of data, because it's almost like in music, the idea of like creation and remixes. So a lot of DJs, they like to do a lot of remixes and then they riff on their friends' work. I know that's very new-ish to art, but I think that's something that we have to accept and like move on eventually. Yeah, where someone can openly credit your work, and then like we don't have a clear answer right now. How would that co-authorship will look like? A part of me thinks that blockchain is the answer, which is why NFTs are very exciting, because NFTs basically show how like wallets are transferred between individuals or between platforms. So I think like increasing visibility of data systems are quite important. And I think the last part that people might disagree strongly with is the idea of like prompting. So prompting is what you do, right, when you are like code monkeying, looking to create something. And the irony that I see in our milieu is that the best people who create prompts are actually the best visual creators. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree. And that's the annoying part, because if you're a very good editor and curator, you end up like evoking like the living copyright of a lot of artists that are still trying to make money from their commissions. And that's the problematic part of like today's like workflows. So I think I don't have a clear answer right now for all of you working on like like Hi everyone, can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Sorry about just now. I always joke that disruptive tech means like tech is disrupted. Yeah. No, it's me and my annoying Wi-Fi. I switched to hotspot. Yeah. Thanks for being patient and thanks for staying with me. Yeah. So when it comes to, I actually love this part of like AI. So if you guys want to ask me more questions, do feel free to. Let's talk about the bottom left corner, which I think is very exciting. And I use the word. I definitely feel like when we victim, which hot take, I think like most of the world thinks that we are a victim of AI. Possible, what are the solutions? So like I said, sorry, am I back? Yeah. Okay, I'm not. Yeah. So back to this. We need to look into the idea of encrypted generation tools. And the way I say encrypted means that, so encryption means that, for example, if you go to a website, it will be password protected. So actually, I think from a UI UX point of view, especially if you guys are working on image sharing or content creation, lol, for the third time ever. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up for like next like 5-10 minutes, and then like we can do like a really quick like Q&A. Uh, thanks. Yeah. So I think when it comes to like UI UX like solutions, the idea of what means for our work to be private is also very important for us to think about. So I think a lot of illustrators and designers, they basically have a very basic website, and then when they start looking for clients who are more serious about hiring or commissioning them, that's when they send the high resolution like portfolios towards them. I would say like especially if you guys are like freelancers, it's so important to get case studies and testimonials. So testimonials are basically someone saying that, oh my god, this is amazing, I love it, and that's like how Instagram ads work. People actually think a lot less about the features and more a lot of like what other people are saying. So I definitely think if you're a creator, think a lot more about how people respond to your artwork and lean into it, because people saying that your work is great already primes them for something, but you don't have to give away your entire hand. Then thirdly, I definitely think that we should all always keep a lookout for people who are working on encrypted private AI tools. I know a company in London was working on something like that 2 years ago. I'm not sure what happened to them. There are a lot of small AI companies trying to work on data and IP protection. Because AI is moving really fast right now, I don't have a full list, but that's what Talk is also trying to do. We are basically trying to eventually create a product where illustrators can upload their artworks and people have an external interface where it's just a marketplace for their artworks. And then the other thing that I would also encourage everyone to think about is the idea of your data sets. So if you're a perfectionist like me and you have maybe say 20 illustrations, or you decide that you go through like phases, and I'm like, okay, this is my college work where I did a lot of like skeuomorphic like websites and I'm bored. I did like lots of WordPress like Blogskins. And now in like my fabulous 2024 era, I'm going to make like the coolest gamifiable, playable like micro website or like bento box interface. So from you as a data creator, you have two types of styles already that people can use to copy and borrow from and to sell towards. So if I were you, I wouldn't be even thinking about AI right now. I'll be thinking about what can be automated and what can be trained. So for example, if you're a Michelin star chef, the way you do systems is you teach baby chefs who apprentice with you, and then you sell it to people at like $500 per meal. And then you do a collaboration, right? You're like, okay, let me work with Nissin and come up with like a super cool like instant noodle flavor. And then that's one way to scale. So the same strategy will apply for your data, where if you're cooking, and we should always be cooking, we have to think about what are the labels people will use to search our information. Because name is the cheapest proxy to searching for your work. So what's a good example? Miley Cyrus. So Miley Cyrus had her Disney era, and then she has her like like Bad Girl Riri era. And when people go to her, they don't necessarily think about Miley Cyrus per se, but they think of like, oh, do I want country and gospel, or do I want say like hip hop and pop? So I would say like if I were you, I would think about where the categories my content is, and I will tune my SEO towards it. And when you do the tuning, that's also where your digital SEO and marketing strategy comes in. Where if I'm an illustrator and all I want to do is draw plants, so I'll be like, okay, tag under plants, but more importantly, tag under wellness and like lifestyle. If you're if you only love doing mobile apps and nothing else, or if you just want to work for gaming companies, you know what to do. You know who are do your research and know who the end users are and reach out to them. And again, these are not AI related, these are business related. So I would say like this is a very, very broad overview about things that definitely are doable, practicable, and more importantly, like defensible in the age of AI. These are all like very broad topics. And then what I think all of us need to do is to come up with answers, come up with, and you have to be comfortable with the fact that the answers will change every 2 to 5 years. But to me, that's also the beauty of making, and that's the beauty of like being a creative, because AI can create what is, but I definitely think AI will never create what isn't. So if you focus every day on what makes your artwork you, or what makes your creativity you, I actually think that people will come to you. You can 10x your rates and billables, and more importantly, you have to have fun. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's it for my presentation today. I can upload and showcase like small parts of the slides on my bento later on. Feel free to drop me a note on LinkedIn also, and then I can connect you or my team to reach out. Yeah. Any last questions, comments? Yeah. Hi, Pradeep. Thanks for joining from India. I want to hear from you though, if you don't mind switching on your your voice. What do you mean by creative integrity and originality?
So the participants won't be able to turn on their audio or video.
Oh,
So
okay, okay, cool. I'll try to guess what you're trying to say. Uh, I think this is where co-authorship is super important. If you are a respectful creative always credit your inspiration and your sources. One thing that my friends and I do is we don't prompt a live artist, we prompt like dead artists, because for IP rights, they have a 99-year creative estate. So if you're using Elvis Presley's work, I don't know if he's dead for 99 years. It's open to public. For example, Van Gogh, he's dead now, so we can all use his work. When it comes to your personal integrity, I would definitely think you have to pay for artwork if you are ethical and moral enough to do it. So if you're like, getting vector packages, if you're getting a beautiful font, get your clients, get your bosses, get your to pay for it in full. And I think that's really the idea of paying it forward, where I do it all the time. I always want to buy like something like cheap from like China, and I told myself Karma will bite me back, so I will pay the full price. Yeah. Any other questions? Hi, Rachel. Oh, you're an SF. Cool. I'm an SF too. What aspects of design are irreplaceable by AI? And how do you ensure they remain central to your work? So for all of us who are not living under the rock, everyone uses the word co-pilot, meaning that there is Tesla and then you're driving, but you're monitoring the car while the car is self-driving. So I definitely think moving forward for design work, it will be a co-driving thing. So what we have to think about again is what's before the AI, after the AI, and in between the AI. Before the AI, data. What are the data sets used to train the AI? So in our case, it would be like, okay, I have a very stressful boss. I have to manage like 10 PMs, product managers. And I think that's the part where alignment is central to what we do. And AI comes later when we make edits, or we can just do comments, or we can do summaries. Central within our work, such a great question. I think when it comes to music, art, illustration, we have so many ways of making, right? I feel like the most interesting musicians of our times, if especially when they're in techno house, they do sometimes use an acoustic guitar, or they use like a manual like keyboard, and then they riff on it, and then it becomes a digital product. So I definitely feel like if you're in different aspects of like design, whether you're designing fonts, whether you are designing like micro animations, Lottie Files is a sponsor, check them out. I definitely feel like we should just see it as a tool. And I definitely think like if you're a great creator, your tools are secondary. There's a Chinese idiom called like shitty artists have like the most amounts of tools. And if you're a great creator, I think you can use like a super janky like 90s like Microsoft 95 thing and come up with something amazing. Or you can pay like $2,000 a year for like best of class like Midjourney, and you might not even generate half of what like someone can draw really fast. And very, 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 very important, post AI. What will happen post AI? For all of us in the industry, more edits, right? Can AI help with more edits? The answer is yes. So illustrations, I'm pushing my team, stop manually recoloring, just use AI. I'm also trying to do the equivalent of Facetune for like AI portraits, where my artist will spend 20 minutes to change the brows, change the double chin. And I'm just like, no, let's just use AI to make like really quick updates. The third part is the idea of upscaling and exporting. So AI is really, really bad at exporting raw files, and that we should play that to our strengths. AI cannot currently parse every single element on your Figma wireframe. AI cannot parse every single track on your video or audio file. AI is super, super, super good though at editing. So my friends with like 500 hours of like content, AI can isolate out the top 10. So I feel like if you want to work less and earn more, focus on speed of curation, speed of prompting, focus a lot more on the. I think upskill is a very word to say, because it's almost like teaching our parents to use the iPhone, I guess, or teaching our parents to use like the search engine. 10 years ago, they'd be like, I don't know what like PayPal is. Now they are just like, just like scan and the NFC code will redirect them. So I feel like as designers, the exciting part for us is AI is still very early in the game. We all have the power to change how we interface with AI. They call it like HCI, human computer interaction. But I think within your own narrow circles, just being an advocate for human AI combination, then human or AI only is already a very strong starting point. Utkarsh, do we have more questions? Thanks for asking too. Yeah, excited to connect. Do you foresee copyright laws will be updated? Forecast is a strong word. I'm getting goosebumps for two reasons. I think when we all crawl out of our designer shell, there's actually a lot of people who are very, 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 very passionate about AI ethics. AI ethics is a 25-year-old industry. Microsoft, everyone, they actually spend a lot of money working on a lot of advocacy, but we don't hear about it for two reasons. Firstly, laws are very geocentric. For example, the most recent bill that's passed in California last month, all the big tech companies were very against it because they call it decelerated like tech, and now they're all for it because they're like, okay, fine. The U.S. government is allowing me to do a lot of training, and then these are the things I can go by. I would say like there are a lot of PDPA and like data privacy laws. Ironically, the interesting ones that's being well done is Europe and China. I know not what we expect. There's a lot of I think there's a lot of interesting policy work, but there's zero like actionable like products. And that's frustrating because that's what I said, right? I just hack it, just upload low risk stuff, create everything password protected, data poison, data ghost. In the meantime, I would say that we have to like be active advocates for our works. We have to teach our clients, we have to teach our bosses, like don't copy some like this person is really famous. We have to pay at least like $50 to recognize their work. On my end, I'm trying to build a tool to protect our work, but I think that's like a bit crazy, so I don't recommend it. Yeah. Okay, Utkarsh, should we end or one last question? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was the last one. So, okay, we have got. No, sorry, that was the last one. So, yeah, we can end up the session now.
got it. It's so nice to talk to y'all over like Q&A. It feels like I'm not just talking to a screen. Thank you, Utkarsh, for like facilitating everything. And then looking forward to connect with you guys all on like LinkedIn, and do sign up for our private beta we launch next summer. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for tuning in. And we have the next set of sessions going to start in the next couple of minutes. So, see you around.
Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.